What is up, guys, and welcome to episode number 4 of the Next Level Esports Podcast, the number one podcast about esports coaching and team development to help you and your team reach that next level by getting the people side of esports right. Today, I have the pleasure to talk with Mick Arcanic de Jong, where we will talk about his hurdles as an esports coach and how to keep ambitious. Mick is currently the head coach of the League of Legends team at Team 7am. Every coach has his hurdles, but we don't need to make the same mistakes. We have a lot to learn from each other. That is why I invited Mick to join the podcast to tell all about how he approaches coaching and what we can learn from his hurdles and stories. So how are you doing today, Mick?
I'm doing absolutely fine. It's nice weather outside, and yeah, overall I'm just doing good. Nothing
Great stuff. Yeah, thank you so much for your time and being here and sharing all your stories. I'm sure there are a lot of juicy stories that you have to tell and great insights where other coaches and other staff members can learn a lot from. So let's jump straight into the conversation. So how did you start off your coaching career, Mick?
Oh, that's a nice one. Okay, so I think it was last year, January. We went... No, it was actually before the coronavirus lockdown. I was just sitting one evening scrolling through the Benelux Discord, which I just joined out of interest of the leagues that they were opening, the Open Tour and all that stuff. And I had this idea of just giving it a shot. I wanted to become a coach. Before that, I even wanted to become a player, but I was never really good enough. So I just typed looking for team post on that Discord. And actually, the next day when I woke up, the owner or manager of Absolute Legends had contacted me, and he asked me if I would like to try out for their team. So that's actually how I rolled into esports. And honestly,
And you became an instant as Absolute Legend.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. And honestly, I really didn't expect much of it, right? I was like, what is my value? I was at the time, I guess, Silver 2, and I maybe peaked at whatever, Gold 1 or something, not really that great. But I knew that every team can benefit from coaching in some way, shape, or form. I was doing a study in social work, which also involves coaching people. So I thought that might be something that could help me. And well, I guess it did, considering that from Absolute Legends, I went over to Team 7am. I joined their academy squad and was also their main team assistant coach. And after the trial process for the Spring Split 2021, I actually became the head coach, and I stayed there after the Spring Split and went into the Summer Split as head coach as well.
Great stuff. So a lot of, or at least a couple of splits under your belt already, and promoted yourself all the way up to a head coach. So you must be doing quite some things right. So that is quite interesting, and we'll deep dive into that sooner further. So today's podcast is about also your hurdles and also your ambitions. So let's start with one of the hurdles. So what would you say is your biggest hurdle so far? What was really difficult for you?
Ooh, okay. Actually, I think it goes back to the beginning of my coaching career.
Right.
I was really eager to start off coaching, and I was watching a lot of LEC, LCS, LCK, all the regions that made something out of esports, right? Out of League of Legends as a job. And I thought I knew a lot. I thought I knew so much about the game because I was watching. But actually joining a team and being their coach showed me that you think you know a lot, but you actually don't. And what I mean with this is, yeah, sure, I knew a bit about macro. I knew a bit about strategy, but I didn't know how to teach it. I didn't know how to bring it over to my players. I didn't know how to draft according to their champion pools and their comforts. I just knew preparation and draft like, for example, LS does, right? I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with LS, but LS, he drafts from the perfect world scenario. He drafts from the idea of everyone can play every champion equally as good.
Right.
And that actually ended up in my team not letting me draft anymore. Because, well, one, the drafts weren't that great, even when I thought they could be. And two, it wasn't really the comfort of the players. So what it did is it actually put me behind immediately. And it was the biggest reality check of my life, I think, as a coach. So I accepted it. And I was like, okay, Players are smart. They know more about the game than I do individually. That's for sure. So let me just look at what they do, try to understand it, and then approach. How do you say it? Change my approach to supply them instead of supplying myself. Um,
Right.
and that is actually how I also overcame the first hurdle. So maybe I went a bit too deep on this question, but that's
No,
basically
no,
my
no.
my
You
first and
can
also
go
biggest
as
one.
deep as you want. I think it's very interesting because I wrote something down. Wrote some things down as well.
Hmm.
And what I wrote down is knowing things is not the same thing as being able to apply it.
Absolutely,
Just
absolutely.
like when you're, let's say, studying any subject in school, like about business or like working with people, like from your social work experience from yourself, you
Hmm.
can read a book but then try to apply it in the real world, and then like, okay, the real world is described in a book, but the real world is never able to be described in any words. It's too complex. It's too, let's say, you have emotions involved as well, because we are learning mostly with our head,
Hmm.
and when we are engaging with people, we have emotions and so many different complex situations. That's not the same, and you really have to overcome it and find your way, let's say, in the coaching landscape, to find your way into, let's say, reach those players to get the results that you want.
Yeah, absolutely. I think theory teaches rules or approach. However, the world does not follow rules and doesn't have one set approach. So you can know a lot of theory, but you have to select the right theory and apply it in the right scenario. And I think that is something that you can only learn through actually experiencing it yourself.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. You, I believe, just like what you do, there are so many models, etc., that try to describe reality, but reality is never able to be described in any model or anything. It's like that differentiates, let's say, good coaches of average coaches, by having that, let's say, also that emotional intelligence
Hmm.
to know how, what the players need in order to make them tick and to motivate them with that particular model or with that particular theory that you want to imply, or that macro strategy or the draft system that you're talking about. You need to know a lot about the people side as well. So that is very interesting. So that was one hurdle. What would you say is also a hurdle of you within your coaching career that you have to overcome?
Okay, another hurdle that I have to overcome. Um, well, that, I can go back to experience, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sure if everyone that is watching this is familiar with the Belgian league, which I'm coaching in. However, one of the bigger hurdles I had to overcome was facing defeat, handling losing every single week in a row. Last split, our team was
Right.
trying their hardest, but we had to deal with 9 losses in a row, which can be really, really tough. And even though I described my previous hurdle as the biggest hurdle because I had to, well, it struck me the most. This is, especially from a player's perspective, one of the toughest hurdles to overcome. Like escaping a losing streak. I think that is something um, which is yeah, it feels sometimes impossible, but you will still
Mm-hmm.
do anything you can to make it work. And if you try everything you can, but you never get rewarded, this can become real, real tough.
Yeah, I concur. Losing is never fun for anyone, especially when you're on a competitive level and you're semi-professional, or just professional. Everyone hates losing, right? I haven't
Absolutely,
never
yeah.
met anyone that's like, "Oh, I love losing. Let's go lose more." Like, I literally never met anyone that's like that, especially not in these, let's say, levels of competition.
Hmm.
So, what do you think? Let's say, to maybe uh, pick some pieces out of this situation.
Yeah.
What do you think was the reason that the team was losing? What are we facing with?
Okay. Um, so the Belgian league has been in a really upward trend of skill level. Every single split, teams invest more money, invest more time, invest more staff, do more to win. And well, the league is picking up, and I guess a bigger reason of us losing wasn't specifically that we weren't good or that we weren't good as a team. I think we actually were, but the competition was improving faster than we were. We were improving for sure every single week. We had our goals, we had the approach to the goals. How do we work on the goals? We had our improvement track. We tracked our improvement basically, and every single week we tried our best. Um, but essentially, when individual skill comes into play and being individually outclassed, yeah, I guess that's something that can cause a lot of losing scenarios.
Yeah. How do you, let's say, be balanced in that sense when you, because maybe you felt like, okay, the individual skill isn't there.
Mhm.
Did the players felt it as well? I believe
I guess
I think they know that, right?
I
They
think they
felt
did
it at
too.
least.
Yeah, I think so. Especially when you're, for example, in League of Legends, when you're in laning phase, which is often a 1v1 or maybe a 2v2 in the bot lane. Um, just noticing that statistically you're falling behind slowly, and then having to review why that happened and seeing that someone else is doing core, or how do you say it, the yeah,
Fundamentals.
fundamental things better. Yeah, that must be really tough to see actually, that they are really outclassing you in the fundamentals of the game.
How do you handle such situations as a coach? Because it's
That's
not easy.
No, no, definitely not. I think so. There's two ways to go about this. One is always approach things from a positive angle. We had the chance to make playoffs when we were 0-7 and had 3 games left. I never, ever, ever said to my players it's over until it was actually over. And at that point, we just, like, after that, we just agreed, well, okay, let's just try it one last time for the sake of us and each other. But every match, we had the same approach. We knew, okay, some teams are better individually, so we have to outclass them. We have to surprise them. And every single week, the focus was, okay, we can get playoffs this way. We have to do this. We win against this team. It's all going to be fine, and we'll make it there. And I think that is the way to deal with losing. And I guess it worked because we kept trying every single week. Even the last week, when we knew we weren't going to make playoffs, we tried really hard, and we actually got the only win of our split through that game. And it still felt really good, even though it didn't mean anything, and we still got last place. It meant that working
Hmm.
hard can pay off, and I think that is the essence of working hard, basically. Or yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, is there more to it? Or was, in that case, inspiring them to not give up was enough? Or also give another perspective, maybe in terms of, hey, is it still a good challenge to showcase who we are as a player or as an
Yeah.
organization as well? How does that, let's say, correlate
Okay,
with one
so
another?
I am a coach who coaches in the here and now. I focus on 1 or 2 games at a time, and from my perspective, it's always okay. We just fight forward 1 week at a time, and we'll try to get playoffs every single week. But in the end, we for example lost against KVM once, and we could have won it, and we also lost against Sector One once, and we could have won it. And those games, we were actually really happy because we could show the world or the viewers that even though we were heavily underestimated and we were not favorites to make playoffs, we could still match the top teams on a good day. And I think that is actually the most important thing. Anyone can beat anyone as long as you have a good day.
Yeah. I totally believe in that is a good motivation if you are realistic to also look at yourself like, okay, they are the top dog, we are the underdog, but we still try to make it work in the best way that we can.
Yeah.
What are, let's say, some examples to really go deep into this? Some things that you say, let's say, very concretely towards your players, maybe some sentences, or what were the conversations at that period of time? You were 0-7, 7 losses. How do you communicate with them? We're talking, let's say, now about the big concepts and
Yeah.
things, but what are the things so other coaches can also learn from you, but how
hmm
you approach such situations, what sentences, what things helped you and the
Okay.
players?
So what I do I don't prepare much. Like I do prepare a little for the game days. Don't get me wrong, and I do prepare scrims, but I don't prepare these talks. I talk from the heart, and I talk in the moment. And what I always did after every single game, win or lose, did never matter. Is I ask my players from top to bot, so in a specific order, what they were feeling after the game, because that is in that moment the only thing that matters to me. How are they feeling? Are they feeling like shit? Are they feeling good? Are they proud? Can they see the positive in a loss? Can they see the negative in a win? Because in that way they can at least ventilate what they are feeling in the moment, and make it clear to their teammates as well. There is of course boundaries. You cannot let them flame each other. You cannot let them point out or point fingers to one another. um, but it did allow each and every one of us to show our emotions before actually going into review. In review, emotions should be separated because you are there to learn. And to achieve this, I have this idea of sharing emotions first, then letting it rest, and then the next day let's look at what went wrong and what we could have improved on, um, and how we move forward. And I think, yeah, I mean, I can do a couple speeches, and I even made a video for my players once to show them the the great moments of their gameplay, and instead of only the losing streak, to motivate them and to show them that, hey, okay, we are 0-4, or 0-5 even at that point, but this went really well, that went really well, this is what makes you great players, and if you believe in yourself and play like that every single time, no one can stop you. And that is a bit of the approach I took into trying to motivate the players, and talking with them about losing.
Yeah, beautiful. What I really hear from you, how you present yourself as a coach, is a coach that is really in tune with, let's say, the environment, your feelings, and be in harmony with the team as well.
Hmm.
To be in the moment and to say what is coming up in that given moment and try to connect with them. What you said is, yeah, I talk from the heart and I do not prepare for that. I believe personally that you have to be a kind of specific coach to do that. Others like to prepare that kind of
Hmm.
stuff. I know that I like to prepare such situations to keep things open, but at least structure it a bit so it goes into a certain direction, or at least the intention to go towards that direction. Have you also found the opposite, that you, let's say, hold yourself back by talking from the heart, and that the players weren't feeling it in that moment, that you had the opposite as well?
Yeah, we actually had this split after one of our losses. People didn't really feel like sharing their feelings, or they didn't have feelings, and at that point I knew something was off. That they were maybe withholding what they were actually feeling because they had negative feelings towards one another. Um,
Hmm.
and actually, the fix that we implemented, and I have to also credit our manager in this moment, Yoni, who really supported us that way. Is we said, okay, guys, we take a break right now, 30 minutes. We come back, and then we just go into review. We never go into review the same day, but this time we did, and we all agreed that we were 100% going to be open, that we might even be negative or close to flaming each other, but
Hmm.
that it all comes from the perspective of trying to improve, and that we have to respect each other as human beings and also their opinions as such. And even though things might get heated, we ended it in a way, like every single argument, we ended it in a way that the players can learn from it, or that the learning experience from that argument or that discussion stands in front of all the feelings that they had. And I think, yeah, I guess I think it worked, because we won last week, by the way. So yeah, or last Monday. So
Yeah, yeah,
after
yeah.
that, we move forward. Um, so yeah, of course, after a couple times, sharing feelings can also be really tough. And at that point, you also have to give room for sharing the harsh feelings, sharing the thoughts that you have been having about one another for a couple of weeks. Maybe someone is not good at last hitting CS. It's a really great example because the player should be. but maybe last hitting a minion, which is the main income of gold in League of Legends, someone is not doing right. And you try to hold this in because you feel like if I say this, it might sound negative. But at a certain point, holding too many things in becomes bad. So then you need to have a session where you let everything out. And that is how, like, this is the experience we had where the post game approach didn't work, but also immediately the fix to how we approached it.
For sure. It's interesting because you are let's say, a very harmonious coach
Mm-hmm.
that's talking a lot through positivity and connection, harmony. But you're also saying we need to sometimes flame each other or be confrontational towards another in order to move further because we have negative feelings on our heart and we have to share them or get that out of our system so we are aware of it in order to move on to work on those points.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
exactly.
so how did that develop you as well from, let's say, this is a hurdle that you came over
Mm-hmm.
and the manager came in and he helped you with, let's say, this setup.
Mm-hmm.
How do you develop yourself? How would you, let's say, approach it in a next up situation, maybe next split, or maybe in a month or
Oh,
two, or
okay.
maybe next year?
Um,
What changes in your own, let's say, philosophy or way of coaching?
that's interesting. I think the philosophy doesn't change. I think this is an intervention that has to come in when it's necessary. I think there is a proactive approach, which is my approach of, okay, we have post game talks, we share our feelings, and there is a reactive approach. And I think the reactive approach here is, okay, things are not going well, we can't share our feelings, and then you need to find solutions. Um, I guess, and I don't want to sound really egoistic here, but I guess
Mm,
good coaches have to be really proactive, but also need to be able to be really reactive. Because if you plan everything out, it's
for
good.
sure.
But if you are not ready for the challenges that might come up, um, it is not that good. So, does it change my philosophy? Maybe. Maybe I will be more reactive next time. And maybe I will have better solutions prepared unconsciously. But will I actively prepare for these situations? I don't think so. No.
So what you're saying is basically it adds up onto your experience as a coach that makes you, let's say, a more holistic or a more evolved coach, but it doesn't change the way or the core principles on the way you are coaching, more
No.
so on the
Yeah.
harmonic side, the positivity, etc.
Yeah.
And how do other coaches gain such experience? If you have some tips to share with other coaches that are planning to become a coach or what are within the first year of coaching,
Yeah.
within their first split, whether that's League of Legends, Apex Legends, PUBG, CSGO,
hmm
what are some things that you would like to share about this thing and development as a coach in general?
mm uh, okay. So the thing I do to properly execute the things I've just spoken about is actually two things. One is active listening. I encourage and I suggest to every single coach, please actively listen to your audience or to your players or to your team, because they might be saying one thing, but they might actually mean something else. And this sounds a bit
Mm,
vague, but players will always, well, filter themselves a bit because they have to speak up in a team environment, which, well, it is pretty, like, for League of Legends, it's 5 players. You have to voice your opinion against 4 other players that might have a real different opinion. So active listening and trying to find the nuances or the intention behind what they are trying to say, and taking those out of the things that they are saying and emphasizing them again is really important. And then the second thing
for
is,
sure.
through active listening and through knowing what players want to say or what their beliefs are, adapt your coaching to supply their strengths, basically. So try to actively listen about what they are saying, or what they believe, or maybe even um, what they think can be good in a certain metagame or whatever. And in Dutch, it's really easy to say for me. In English, it's harder. Adapt yourself, adapt your coaching, adapt your approach towards empowering your player, towards finding the best way possible to improve your player or your team.
I like that. I like that. So the first one, let's break it down a little
Yeah,
bit.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So you said active listening.
Mm-hmm.
How I view it and how I explain that, and maybe that is something you resonate with as well, is connect with the person, not the message.
Yes, that's literally it. Yeah, you have to listen to what they're saying, but you have to understand it through their perspective and not through your perspective. Because in the end, they are trying to bring something into the team, bring something into the review, bring something into the post game talk. And it is not about how you decode their message, but it is about how they encode their message. So basically, it's what, yeah, you have to filter what they want to say and how they see it, what their intention is.
Yeah, 100%. And also, when you connect with the person, just like to give a concrete example, how I view it, if you're at a birthday party and your aunt cooks up a nice cake,
Mm-hmm.
and she's like, "Oh, do you like it, Donnie? Do you like it?" And be like, "Yeah, it's super nice. This vegan tofu ish cake. I really like it." And she's very happy. Oh, I knew you like it. Then she only is, let's say,
Yeah.
fishing for the message, but doesn't see my how my intonation is in my voice, or like my mimics. If you have a webcam on the screen,
Mm-hmm.
you need to know the patterns of your players in order to see if they are performing well in the start of the season. If you have, like, say 2-3 weeks of uptime in the beginning, everyone is joyful and you see these patterns. And I
Mm-hmm.
believe that is very important to look for the patterns. How are people behaving when they're feeling at ease, or when they are harmonious with each
Yeah.
other?
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you see a break in that pattern, then it's something that you can tune into more and make connection
Yeah.
with that
Absolutely.
player.
Yeah.
And the second part was supply their strengths, and I like this a lot. And it's one of the core things as well of Next Level Esports. Is I will always say, work 80% of the time on the person's strength, the individual
Mm-hmm.
strength, because they have natural tendencies, how they behave, how they play, how they work, how they coach. If you want, let's say you are an harmonic coach, if I would say, oh, you need to prepare everything and write everything down and use models and blah 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 blah, and you feel like maybe cognitively, yeah, that makes sense, but in your heart, in your soul, it doesn't make sense at all, and you
Mm-hmm.
will be, let's say, down in the drain in a month.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll survive too, but then you're done with coaching. You'll go back to your old self because that feels right. You're congruent with your whole self. And the other 20% is working on, let's say, the flaws, to make things that are not going right. For example, what you explained, the CSing, the creep scores, of making it acceptable.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, something like that. So, what do you think are some hurdles that all coaches go through? That you feel like,
Mm.
I've talked to many other coaches as well in my network, with other teams. These
Mm-hmm.
are some coaches I feel like, yeah, everyone goes through this phase or this particular problem.
Okay. Well, there is obviously the big elephant in the room. It's joining a team, being new on a team, or as a coach, maybe building a new team, meeting
Mm.
new players. This is, I think, the biggest hurdle a coach goes through, because does your vision, does your philosophy match with the players? And yeah, I'm a harmonious coach, as you said before. For me, that's really important, because if my vision or my philosophy doesn't match the players, then how will I ever coach them? Because I need them to join my group. I need them to join my vision. Need them to join the harmony of my approach. I don't need them to like me. I don't need them to agree with everything I say. But at least they need to see through my eyes, and I need to see through theirs, and from there understand what we want. I think that's a big hurdle. I think it's pretty tough to connect with new players, or as a player, even with your coach, or yeah, from every single angle, basically. Um,
How did you do it in your first teams, or
yeah, I think
in
so.
this particular team? How did you came in? What did you say? How did you build up that harmony so you
So
feel at home and they feel at home, which is very important.
yeah, so in this team, I had a bit of a say about the roster, and I think it's important to find players that suit each other, but also suit the coach. So what we did is we had some really promising players in our tryouts, and some were not selected. Without going into specifics, right? Because this is some
Mhm.
inside information, but some might have not been selected. Let's say it like that, because they weren't harmonious with another player or with the coach. So you start to create the atmosphere, the environment, even before every single player is in it. And then when they join it, there is two important things. One is introduction, because introduction is key to getting a good feeling about one another. The first time you meet someone, you have to already give a good and positive um, impression of yourself to someone.
Love at first sight,
Yeah,
but then a little
basically.
bit
Yeah.
different.
So that's what I focus on. I like to be funny. I like to be friendly. I'm always open for a chat. That's what I also tell my players. I stick around after scrims. I try to work on bonding. I try to find ways, ways to connect with every single individual. And I also try to find ways to connect the individuals together as a team. In this team, for example, we are we are just fooling around sometimes because we all like fooling around, and it doesn't mean that we are inting scrims or whatever, but it means that we are just joking even in moments where we really shouldn't be. So maybe in the draft phase, we are making some jokes or we are laughing at the enemy bands, because that is something that connects every single player. They all like to do that, and that is something that's important, to work on with a new
Yeah,
team.
yeah, yeah, for real. I think that is a good way to approach teams and to set up these calls and to not be interested but really be invested into your teammates.
Hmm.
And that is what I'm hearing from you with connecting with them, staying after the scrims and not being like, okay, this was a scrim, see you guys tomorrow or next
Hmm.
week or
Yeah.
good luck in solo queue, but really connect with them on a personal level. And what I also really like what you said is the individual attention that you try to give.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I believe that is often undervalued or underrepresented in, let's say, in esports teams, because everything is so much focused on the whole team, right? We as a team try to do things, and we as a team need to perform, and we need to, as a team, need to be better, need to improve on this, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, the team consists of individuals, and if you want to coach an individual or know how a single piece of information can help the team, you have to confront the individual players in their different laning phases or different stages within the team, and that is very underrated. So, what are maybe some quick things that you do to individually connect with them besides staying after scrims and cracking a couple of jokes?
Okay. Um, I so one thing, and I don't even use it in only coaching. I use it throughout my study. I use it throughout
For
like
sure.
in general. Basically, it is finding common interests, finding common likes.
Right.
If a player is really into playing MMO games next to their scrims and solo queue practice. Oh, I mean, I played some MMOs. I played World of Warcraft. I played RuneScape. Let's see, maybe they play it too, or they have played it. Let's have a chat about it. Maybe they like anime, or even something random like Pokemon or whatever, right? Something that
You
is
call Pokemon random now?
no, but just a
Oh, no.
couple of examples.
Joking.
Basically, I have a Pokemon mouse mat. That's why I came up with it.
Oh.
Um, so you have to find things often outside of league or the game that you're coaching, because it has to be more applicable to different fields, in my opinion. Um, and you try to connect through that. So hey, maybe this player of mine had a Nintendo Switch. Oh, which games do you have on Nintendo Switch? I also have one. Maybe we can play together once. And maybe you don't even play together ever, but you have talked about it, and now you know something about someone, and he knows something about you, which the other players don't, and that builds connection, that builds relation, and I think that's important.
Exactly. I had a conversation with the player of a team a couple of days ago,
Mm-hmm.
and he basically said the same thing. I should invest more in talking or connecting with these particular players that I maybe have a harder time to connect with
Mm-hmm.
in order to understand their life more.
Yeah.
Because if I understand their life more, I understand the way they perceive the game more.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they are playing I don't know, Pokemon only by collecting Pokemon, or are in the arena, or do they play World of Warcraft? Are they PvP players or PvE players? How do they play? What kind of class they play, etc. You can go as wide or deep as you want,
Mm-hmm.
but it says a lot. It builds a framework or a picture of that player and their personality. And if they pick a certain champion or they propose a certain playstyle, you know where it's coming from, and you can more so relate to it. And also, if that's not something that you feel like, oh, this is not a good choice because it doesn't really fit him or me or the whole team, it makes more sense to confront that person. It's so much easier if you have more context of a player and how they behave. So I believe that is one of the core fundamentals as well as a coach, what you're saying, how you're approaching things to really connect and find common ground of interest between yourself and the players, and also connecting the players with one another as well.
Yeah.
So let's move on also a little bit with, you've overcome a lot of hurdles, and we
Mm-hmm.
talked to a lot of hurdles. So for the last questions about hurdles, now then we will move on to more ambitious,
Mm-hmm.
let's say the more sunny side of things, and not only the problems, but we're always keen to hear problems. We learn a lot from them. We are often not talking, and we also discuss, let's say, bigger hurdles, finding teams, huge pillars. But what are some tinier hurdles that we can talk about? Hurdles that we need to overcome day in, day out, that doesn't really seem like hurdles, but small bumps, or just like, oh, I need to spend a little bit of energy here and there to keep everything in place. Because if we as coaches don't do that, after a week or maybe after a month, the house will be on fire. So, what
Mm-hmm.
are some small hurdles of problems that we need to tackle day in, day out?
One is structure, and I will go into structure
Right, let's go.
easily because there's a lot of layers to it. But for example,
For sure.
having a schedule for your players and making sure that the players know the schedule, that they are aware when they need to be, where they need to be and at what time, because it actually avoids the hurdle. Because if this is done correctly and the players show up, then there is no hurdle of, oh shit, they are late, now I have no time for my preparation with them.
Mm.
But it's also a little bit of a hurdle because you have to take it every single day. You have to check. You have to make sure that they are on time, that they know what the structure is. And this also goes into like preparation, for example. Every single time we have scrims, there is a small hurdle of having to give structure to what you want to practice. What are your goals, and how do we work on those goals? Um, and the last one, and this goes into coaching, but also players. In this is in review. In review, everyone has their opinions, but how do you make it so that the opinions don't hurt one another? And how do you make it so that every single time an opinion or feedback is given, that someone can learn from it? How do you make your players constructive? All these things I just mentioned, I see as smaller hurdles that I have to overcome every single day, because you can go into a split and teach your players constructive criticism, but you have to monitor it every single day, because they will not, without flaming players, right? But they will not out of themselves think, oh fuck, I need to make this a constructive criticism, because otherwise they might not listen to it and learn from it. No, they'll just say, this is going bad. This is what you should do. Um,
It's a muscle you need to
yeah,
train.
yeah,
You
exactly.
need to help them with it, else they can be loose cannons and they shoot their opinions everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes it can be beneficial if you're stuck and okay, let the emotion come out.
Yeah, yeah,
But I believe in most of the cases it's better to contain it and to structurize it and bring some at least some way of constructive criticism.
absolutely.
uh,
Yeah.
so for sure. So good examples of some small hurdles, because we oftentimes forget those small things. So look also at the small things that we can improve day to day in out, because I believe coaching is an art form, because it's so delicate in every type of situation, and doing a lot of things right makes it work, makes
Yeah.
the dream work. It's like a watch with tiny different things, and everything moves at the same time, clockwork basically. And to get that right, you have to do a lot of things in tiny cogs and wheels. You have to really synchronize with each other.
Yeah.
So now let's move on to your ambitions. How do you become, let's say, a higher coach, and what are your ambitions in general, and what do you think you need to do from your own personal perspective in order to achieve those ambitions?
Okay. So I have two ambitions. One is to win Belgian League and make EU Masters. This is because I'm in the Belgian League and it's the highest prize.
Hmm.
The other ambition I have is a bit more personal. It is to mm, make money in esports. And I don't want to make money for the sake of making money, but it is my intrinsic motivation to show my surroundings, my environment, my family that investing in esports is not only a hobby, but can actually be a real job. And those two ambitions I have. One is to prove myself, and one is to, well, basically win the highest prize available.
Hmm.
Those are
Right.
quite big, right? It ambitions. Well, for me at least right now, making money is not really in reach. I'm not saying I cannot make money, but to have to make some sustainable money, I'll have to grow more and get more experience. Um, and winning the Belgian League, if you have been keeping up right now, we are in fourth place. Um,
Hmm.
the sky is the limit for us, that's for sure. However, there is some really strong teams that we need to overcome. Um, so I'm not saying, oh, this is my ambitions and I'll make them next year or this year. No. I,
That's why they're ambitious, right?
yeah, exactly.
What do you need to do from your own perspective in order to get there?
Improve every single day. Yeah, sounds a bit simple,
What
right?
does that
Yeah,
mean, Mick?
exactly. What
What
does
does
that
that
mean?
mean?
Whoa. So, um, improving every single day means, okay, I want to win Belgian League. How do we get there? Well, we need to get fifth place first, and fourth place, and third, and second, and then hopefully win the finals. But it isn't that easy, is it? You have to make sure that your team will be a better team than your opposition, and as a coach, making your team better than the opposition means having to constantly find a new approach, a new perspective, new information that you can teach. Because, yeah, okay, we know quite a bit about communication. We know some macro flow, we know tempo, we know rotations, we know a couple of plays. But in the end, we still need to learn so much more to win. And as a coach, you have to stay on top of it. You have to make sure that your knowledge grows every single day or every single scrim at least, so that you can supply your players with the proper theory or the proper approach for them to improve as well.
Where do you get such knowledge? Do you think that is attainable within the team itself by playing with each other, and then eventually you will achieve those ambitions, or
Uh,
is there more to it than only discussing with the players and grinding it out?
Two approaches. One is learn from example. In my opinion, in my case, learn
Hmm.
watching LCK, for example. I watch almost every single game. I try to understand their approaches to the game. I try to see, for example, their jungle pathing. Is there anything creative? Why do specific picks work in specific scenarios? Why is a certain pick always prioritized? So basically, I'm keeping my knowledge to a good basic level. But in a team environment, through reviewing, through talking with each other, through preparation, there often are ideas from different players. For example, right now we have Pascali and Sid, our top end support, who have
Hmm.
been playing together previously on a different team, and they actually made EU Masters. So they went to the tournament that I would like to be at. They probably have learned or have experience. Learned something or have experience um, to and to be able to get there. I've never been there. I've never had the opportunity to win a split. I was never good enough from my own perspective. So I need to also learn from the
Hmm.
players. What did they do? What did their coaches teach them? What specific plays did they maybe learn about that aren't as common knowledge to as other plays, basically. For example, you can know about the lane swap. This is one of the biggest examples. It's basically you have a top lane and a bot lane, and you swap the players around, and then you create a sort of um, pressure onto one side of the map to get an advantage out of it, to create a win condition.
Hmm.
But there's also plays that are invented by other coaches or that are invented even by players that aren't as as public knowledge, but are still really good. So I think it's a mix of improving your own basic knowledge, understanding draft, understanding the meta, understanding what the big teams do, and combining that with what the players think is good or what the players want to do or what they have learned, to make sure that you're still working from the strength of the players and yeah, adding your knowledge into that basically.
I totally believe that that is correct. It's both ways, also working on the game, the knowledge side, also
Mhm.
on the people side, knowing how to touch the players in a spiritual way to know what they need in order to activate God mode, in order to
Mhm.
fire up and smash the opponent. Yeah, for sure. So, Mick, we're
Yeah.
slowly moving towards an end. I still have a couple of questions to
Yeah.
go. Is
Sure.
there one thing that you would like to leave, uh, let's say, people hearing this podcast with? One golden nugget of you that you feel like, okay, if I have to drop one knowledge bomb or one golden nugget, this would be it.
Ooh, that's hard. Uh, can there be a message instead of a knowledge bomb?
Always,
Okay.
it's your show. Let's go.
Oh wow! Holy shit. Um, Look, any aspiring coach, any coach that's been doing this for years, stay true to yourself and never give up. If you have ambition, if you have a goal, set it out. Maybe even visualize it, put it on the wall, and think for yourself what the steps are. Make them small, make them simple, and make sure that every single day that you're busy or trying to improve, that you find a way to make one step towards that goal. Because in the end, that will always give you a good feeling about yourself. Because in the end, you have your goal, you have your ambition. You maybe also want to reach EU Masters or even the LEC or for God knows what. So know what you want, know how to get there, and try to improve yourself step by step, one step at a time.
Beautiful. I believe that is one thing that you hear often,
Yeah, absolutely.
and it's sort of common knowledge, but it's not that common because I've never seen anyone do that almost. Like really printing things out, putting it on the wall, and to make the magic work.
Mhm.
And for in other areas of life, not within esports, I literally saw people doing it, and I don't know why, but it works. It just keeps reminding it, sinking into the unconscious. And if you really want to achieve something, I believe as well, just like you can achieve it, but you have to work for it. It doesn't come for free.
Absolutely not. No.
So there was also a question of someone that you know quite well.
Yes.
It's from the last podcast episode number 3 of Zonic. And he had a particular question for you. And you can also, in a moment, ask a question for the next episode as
Hmm.
well, towards the next coach. And Zonic had the question: how do you handle strong personalities within a team?
Mm. Well,
How do you handle it?
First of all, I want to say I do know Sonic very well. I like him, and he actually is a really good barbecue host as well, as I has
All right,
experienced last week.
great.
But back to the question, um, how do you handle strong personalities within a team? Yeah, that's a really tough one. I'm not gonna lie. I think you actually have to be strong yourself. If you have a strong personality, what often happens is those personalities start testing the limits. You need to, well, you need to have a sort of boundaries in your working relation with the players, and especially with the strong personalities, um, to be able to manage them correctly, because otherwise they will often overshadow your own personality. This is from my own experience. I'm not saying that every
Mhm.
single strong personality is like this, but yeah. So setting boundaries and being strong yourself are two really important things. But respecting the strong personality is also really important. And this is because you'll give them a sense of value that will, one, boost their ego a bit, but also it gives them the feeling that they are being heard. However, to keep this in balance, you also need to demand respect. This comes back to being strong. So you have to give respect, but you need to take the same amount of respect back to not let it go out of hand. And this can be tricky, and I think you need to have all the steps before that I mentioned before, right, before you can do this.
Hmm.
But you can even let the strong personalities off the leash sometimes and see what they want to do, see what their approach is. But it's really important that if you do this, you follow it up with individual chats to this person, and also maybe the other persons involved, to make sure that this doesn't go out of hand. Because a strong personality might say, my entire team is doing everything wrong, and this is how it should happen. Maybe they're right. They could be. So it's good to test it. But you have to make sure that, one, they don't feel superior, and two, that the other people, the entire team, doesn't feel inferior or even attacked or hurt by the things that the strong personality said. So finding balance, I guess, is the summarizing suggestion or advice I have. Um, but I guess being strong yourself is the way to go. Don't let those strong personalities take over.
Right. I call being strong yourself, be at home. Know who you are,
Yeah.
understand what you understand where you stand from, your values, your ambitions, how you want to coach things.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know where you are as a coach, you know how to handle situations and also even strong personalities. You will find your way. It's not a set in stone process.
No, no, no,
Just like what
definitely
you
not.
said, you have to do a lot of things, connect with them, bonding, what we talked in this podcast for quite a bit. And after that, you need to build a relationship with them as well. So, yeah, beautiful. I really like that answer a lot. So, what would be your question towards the next podcast
Ooh. So it's
guest?
a bit of a deep question maybe, and it's interesting to see how they answer it. I'm wondering, next podcast guest, what are, in your opinion, the core principles of coaching?
Core principles of coaching. Ooh, very interesting.
I
I'm
didn't
writing
say it
it
was
down.
easy. I hope that the coach is prepared, but I think this is really important, and I think everyone has different ones. So it's
Yeah.
interesting to see what maybe someone has that I don't.
Yeah, for sure. We will find out.
Yeah, we
We
will.
can, I believe we can talk about it like for hours. What are
Oh yeah,
principles?
yeah,
What is
yeah.
important? You also said like some things for yourself, like structure is a very important one,
Mm-hmm.
but there obviously are way more. Connecting with one another to give individual attention could be one that is more as so a principle for you.
Mm-hmm.
But let's find out what the next coach in this podcast series think about his view of principles in esports coaching or coaching in general. So thank you. I will note it down and be sure to talk about it in the next podcast.
Awesome.
So if people have any more questions or want to follow up with you to share a story or maybe ask for advice or maybe to go into another conversation or whatever that floats their boat,
Mm-hmm.
where can they find you?
One, always in the Team 7 a.m. Discord. Honestly, we are always hanging out there. Join the general channel. Even tag me there and I'll come. I'm always open to talk with people. So yeah, that's the place where I hang out a lot. But if you want to have a more personal approach, you can also visit my Twitter, which is at @iArcanic, like iPhone, but then Arcanic. And yeah, my DMs are open, I think, on Twitter. I'm 99% sure. I'm always open for questions, advice, whatever you want. Shoot me a message and I'll message you back.
Yeah, great stuff. So I will be sure to put all your links in the description below so people will have an easy time to find you and to connect with you for sure. And yeah, that is basically, we're coming to an end of this podcast series, Mick, Arcanic de Jong. So thank you so much for sharing your stories, hurdles, and ambitions today. I think it will be a lot of value for anyone that is listening. Even if it's an experienced coach, it's good to go back to some of the basics or a different perspective on how to coach, also with who you are, how you present yourself as a more harmonic coach. Maybe other coaches relate to you, or other players or staff members, maybe some don't, and they formulate who they are. At least you got some people thinking for sure, 100%. So thank you for participating a lot. And yeah, and that is it, guys, for the 4th Next Level Esports Podcast, the #1 podcast for esports coaches and team development to help you and your team reach that next level by getting the people side of esports right. If you like this episode, let us know and spread the word. Smash that like button, share and subscribe, of course. And be sure to let us know what you've learned from this podcast. Always happy to interact with you, the listeners, of course. So if you want more information or things to learn, you can go to the Next Level Esports Discord or go to the Next Level Esports YouTube channel for more content. And find us as well on Twitter at next_L_esports, and let us know what you think of this episode. So thank you once again, Arcanic.
Not a problem.
Mick de Jong as a guest on the podcast. And for everyone that is listening, I hope you are also tuned in for the next podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, and see you guys next time. Bye-bye.